And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Phone number is 888-659-3727. So great to be here. Look, it's The Bald Show. Every Tuesday night, same time, same place. And if you're new to the broadcast, well, you know, I'm sorry that you're dealing with hair loss. There's probably a good chance if you're watching the show that you're dealing with some degree of hair loss. You know, sadly, 2/3 of men by the age of 35 will suffer with some degree of hair loss. 40% of hair loss sufferers are women. This is a silent epidemic of unbelievable proportions that affects just about every household. I've got something going on my neck. Just about every household in the country and around the world. That's how huge it is. And you know, with that said, in this country alone, we're dealing with about a $3.5 billion a year hair loss industry. And most every product, not everyone obviously, but most products and services that are being sold in this industry are complete bullshit, will not help you in any way, shape, or form. That's the sad truth. So if you're new to this, if you just stumbled on the program, if you found us through the American Hair Loss Association, or through Bald Truth Talk, or through the Bald Truth website, or on WebMD, or on any of the other resources that either air or discuss this program, you have found, in my view, your safe place. So if you're considering buying any product or service to treat your hair loss, please do your due diligence. Take the time to do your research. Listen to this broadcast. It's not just a bunch of middle-aged men whining about their hair loss. We speak from experience. I'm a guy who's been dealing with hair loss for over 20 years. I've been lucky enough to save a decent amount of hair using FDA-approved medication, little head paint, and some hairspray, and voila, I have a relatively full head of hair. Some may say it's too full. That's the hairspray. You know, I gotta try to maintain some volume. That's my thing. But you're going to be faced with all kinds of crap. You're going to be faced with the lotions and the potions being sold online. You're going to be faced with the infomercials and the stuff that's still being sold in the back of men's magazines. You're going to be faced with the nonsense that your parents tell you about hair loss, that your grandparents tell you about hair loss, and that you read on the internet. You know, you're not going to get the cure from hair loss from a guy selling an ebook from his basement. I wish that was true. I wish the guy that's selling those ebooks, and there's several of them, really had the cure for hair loss. I don't think they do. We're also here to act as a support group. We're here to give you, obviously, guidance through this treacherous industry, but to tell you and to let you know that there is hope and life after hair loss. Take it from me. Take it from a guy who started to lose his hair at 22 years old, extremely depressed about it, depressed to the point that I decided to make this my career. I wasn't able to concentrate on anything else. I had a significant opportunity in my life to, do other things. But I chose this path because I was so affected by it. Don't be ashamed to call in. Don't be ashamed to vent. Don't be ashamed to say that hair loss hurts, because it does. I'm not ashamed to say it. I get a lot of shit for it. You should see some of the nonsense I get, through email and on, different forums. But I'm not alone. That's why this program has been on the air for 14 years. Almost 15. Because there's 200,000 of you waking up every day realizing for the first time that you're losing your hair. And I'm the guy that will publicly say that it sucks. But also you need to know that I'm not here to sell you anything. I don't sell any products or services. I don't. I've made money from my books over the years. I've made money through my hair transplant organization, the IHRS, through some other resources in the hair loss world. But I don't sell anything directly to the public. I refuse to. So you're not going to be hawked any products or services here. Phone number 888-659-3727. Excuse me, that's 888-659-3727. Give us a call if you have any questions, concerns about your hair loss, or if you just want to vent. Now, there was a big meeting. Everyone's asking about it in the Bahamas for the International Society of Hair Restoration Surgery, the main educational body for the hair transplant industry, the big society that has been around. I think this was the 20th anniversary this year. And everyone always contacts us, asks us what's new, what's going on. Did you go to the meeting, Spence? Now, I've been to several of these meetings, to tell you the truth. I have fun when I go there. It's interesting to see what happens during certain sessions. It's nice to kind of rub elbows with some of the guys in the field. But the vast majority of the guys in the organization, they don't like me very much. They don't like me because, in my view, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe they like me at this point. Maybe they've gotten to know me a little bit better. But they're not really happy with my presence in the field because I was the guy that came out many years ago and separated, at least in the public's eye, gave them the information they needed to separate the great doctors from the guys that weren't doing such great work. Now, luckily, things have evolved a lot over the years, and there are more doctors who are coming to the plate that have been able to reasonably change the infrastructure of their practices to do much better hair transplants. But in my view, there's still a lot of crappy work being done. So I have not been able to grow the organization past a certain number of guys. And no exaggeration, we get at least 2 applications a week. A lot of applications from Europe now. A lot of applications from Turkey. Turkey, I mean, it's exploding as far as cosmetic surgery and surgical hair restoration. We must have had 15, I'm not exaggerating, maybe not 15, maybe 12 applications from doctors who I've never heard of. Some are in the ISHRS, most who aren't, from Istanbul and other parts of Turkey, which is interesting to me. But anyway, I know that Dr. Alan Bauman is calling in tonight to talk about what happened. He was there. He's always a big part of the ISHRS conference. He's usually a speaker. He usually runs several sessions, if that's what you call them, and he's really a guy in the know. My lines are lit, but I think I know what line he's on, so let me see if this is him. Hey, Alan, is that you? Hey, who's this? You're on the air.
Is that me, Spencer?
It's Joe. Joe, what's happening, man?
I'll get off right now for Alan.
No, you know what? Say your thing. Let's do your opening, and then we'll take Alan.
Well, as you know, as your audience, millions of audience know, I'm a strong supporter of President Obama. He's a great American, great president. But the reality is the next president of the United States will be Mitt Romney, as I predicted on your shows. I'm strongly suggesting that he seek out an IAHRS position in the Boston area or the New York area to address his receding hairline and his obvious crown recession that he puts a topic on. Because America is on a fiscal cliff, economic Armageddon, we're headed for war. We need a president with a Reagan-like hairline. Please, Mitt, go to an IRA HRS position and call Spencer. God bless you, Governor Romney. and God bless President Obama.
Joe from Staten Island.
Excuse me.
Would you like me to may I reiterate it? Have you heard it? Excuse me.
Joe from Staten Island.
Joe, I'm going to disagree with you as far as suggesting that that Mitt Romney go to see a hair transplant surgeon. I mean, he's 65 years old.
Hell, a sufferer.
65 years old, he's doing pretty well. And next time you want to promote the IHRS, do me a favor, write it down. But I have it in front of you. So you can get it right.
Why is that?
Because you called the IRA. You called the IRA. That's what you're doing.
IAHRS. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm sorry.
I don't think, I'm just busting your balls. I don't think we necessarily need a president with a completely full head of Reagan hair. I don't buy that. And I think he's doing quite well for 65. And frankly, if he wants to do something, maybe he should just continue to use topic or whatever you claim that he's using. And if he wants to try to, halt the progression, he could take finasteride, perhaps.
But Spencer, the point I'm trying to make, what's facing America is economic Armageddon. We're headed for war. We need a president with a Reagan-like headline, which Romney obviously doesn't have.
So you don't think Romney could? You don't think Romney can do his job if he's elected unless he has a Reagan-esque hairline?
No, but America needs a strong president. I mean, he's probably suffering because of the hell of sufferer. Get an IAHRS physician. Am I correct?
That you're correct.
In the Boston area, Newark area, I'm sure you could help him out. He's the next president of the United States. That's the bottom line. I'm predicting this. I'll be engineers are recording it.
Yeah, we're recording
That's what I feel.
All right. Well,
it's amazing. Like one debate is a thinning crown. The next debate is a full crown. I've noticed that. As you know, I'm dissecting the debate.
Well, let me tell you something. I consider myself an expert in this as far as being able to
yes, you are an expert more than me. Of course you are. You're the world's leading expert.
Being able to detect what's going on. And what I sense is a fresh dye job. For the second debate, for sure, he had a fresh dye job. So when you have a fresh dye job, you actually tend to have a little bit of a color coating on your scalp, which could look like you're wearing some sort of concealer. I'm not saying that he's not wearing concealer, but his dye jobs differ from public appearance to public appearance. That's just my opinion.
You're the hair. I'm the hair loss researcher. You're the hair transport expert. In my opinion, he needs about 3,000 grafts, and you're the hair transport expert.
I'm not a hair transplant expert. I'm a hair transplant industry expert. I understand, I understand all the basics. I know what to look for. I am not here to recommend a number of grafts to anybody. I'm not a doctor. I don't act like other guys who are out there in this industry who will actually, make, give people a medical diagnosis and tell them that they need 3,000 grafts. I'm not a doctor. I can't do that. I could suggest what I think would be appropriate, but I'm not going to. That's not my role.
You rather not suggest what you think that Romney needs when he becomes president. You rather not say.
No, I am not going to suggest. I'm going to let a doctor do that job. Let's see if we can get Dr. Bauman on the line. All right. I'll keep you potted up. I'll keep you.
Let's have a question, by the way.
I'll keep you potted up.
By the way, Spencer, I suggest you run for president of the United States in 2016.
Yeah, but I have a receding hairline and a slight comb over. How can I do that?
Spencer, you're a lot better than Romney. You a lot more hair than he does.
Dude, I don't have a lot more hair than he does. I have a lot more hair on this side, maybe, that I can kind of flip over with some makeup. But I appreciate that. I'm gonna pot you up.
You're a future governor of California first and president. Okay, let me shut up.
I don't know about that. I smoked a lot of pot in my past when I was like 18, 19 years old. That can come out.
But President Clinton didn't inhale. Did you inhale?
I inhaled quite often. Very short period of my life, actually. And I got to the point where, I mean, I never did it every day or anything like that, but I got to the point where I was like, this isn't productive. I realized early on as a kid that this is a very unproductive drug. And there are guys that I know that I grew up with that are still living in the same neighborhood and that are still, they may be living in their parents' house. I know one guy that recently moved out who was 45 years old. It's because his parents lost the apartment. And he's a big pot smoker. So anyway, Joe, I'm gonna keep you potted up.
One quick suggestion, sir. I suggest you be Vice President, Dr. Alan Bauman, 2016. He's a great American.
And he's got great hair. 888-659-3727. Let's see if this is Dr. Bauman. Alan, is that you?
Spencer.
Alan, how are you, man?
I'm doing great.
So tell me what happened at the conference. I know I missed a lot. Everyone is emailing me, asking me what's going on. Yeah,
I don't understand. You should have come to the Bahamas with us. We would have had a lot of fun.
I don't know if I want to see a bunch of middle-aged hair transplant doctors in bathing suits. I don't know. I mean, you're young, so I mean that's cool. I could hang out with you and your wife, but
I will tell you. I mean, literally, I got 10 minutes in the ocean, and I did not even take a dip in the pool. I mean, this is the big conference, Spencer.
I know.
Come on, you spend 5 days indoor. I mean, we're in a beautiful location.
Right.
I mean, believe me, I don't need the sun and the beach. I have it here, but
that's right.
We're in a beautiful location, and we spend 5 days indoors from like 6, 7 in the morning until 10 o'clock.
And you're wearing coat and ties. You guys are wearing.
Well, actually, it was business casual.
Okay.
Business casual this year. So, but with a black tie event at the end.
Right. So you guys were able to just wear like slacks and dress shirts.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's great.
Absolutely. A lot of guys were walking around with shorts and T-shirts. It's a resort,
right.
Atlantis resort, so you can get away with it. We did that in Puerto Vallarta a couple of years back, and I think in 2001, and it works okay. It's just kind of funny. You're at a scientific conference, and you're seeing guys walking through with like Hawaiian shirts.
Right.
It's a little weird. I mean, at least for me, I don't know how to dress really business casual. I mean, it's either I got scrubs or I got a shirt and tie.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm either wearing just, what I wear on a daily basis, or if I'm going to work, I'm going to work. I'm going to wear a tie. Right. That's just the way. Maybe it's the Hebrew school part of me. Or I don't know what it is.
I hear you.
Yeah. So tell me. So what was the big buzz at the conference this year?
Okay. Well, my overall impression, of course, my passion about minimally invasive surgery.
Right.
And I also, I have to tell you also about my trip to Paris, because I did lecture in Paris, literally 2 days before the ISHRS conference started.
Okay.
So I'll tell you about that. But my passion for FUE, and we've had this discussion many times that I have felt over the years that the ISHRS conference has kind of been skewed away from FUE for many, many years, and that there were only a few of us who kind of been beating the drum about minimally invasive, no scalpel, no stitch kind of surgery.
Right.
But I think the tide is really turning. There was a lot of FUE presentations this year, so I was pretty psyched.
Well, I think the tide is turning also because there are more devices that are coming on the market, and let's be honest, the online world, the hair loss community online is really calling for these procedures, and it's becoming more and more apparent that the younger guys are kind of turning away from the strip and saying, you know what, I'd rather have potentially smaller sessions, depending on where you go and have this done. And I'd rather, just take my time, have FUE, maybe even spend a little bit more money, but avoid that linear scar.
You're absolutely right, and I will tell you that really the buzz in Europe is all about FUE. They're actually doing a lot more FUE in Europe, and also in Asia too. Not only
I was talking about all the Turks that are applying to the IHRS, and they are all doing FUE.
Oh, in Turkey, it's exploding. It's FUE only.
It's almost exclusive. Yeah,
exactly. They're entering the field. And I know just for a fact, because I had a physician here who was undergoing a hair transplant. We did FUE procedure for him. He's from India. And he was telling me, because he does training for FUE, 100 guys came through his program for training. None of them are learning strip.
Yeah, and like I told you, I wasn't exaggerating. At least 12, and maybe more. I'd have to look. And they're all from Turkey. And it's just like application after application. And I have to tell you, some of the work, there are some guys who have been doing FUE several years. Right. In these clinics, and the work looks pretty good. It's difficult for me to bring somebody from Europe, especially, or from Turkey, and other parts of Europe, into the IHRS because, for whatever reason, even though the work might be great, their presentation hasn't been that great as far as what they're presenting to me. So it's difficult for me to really tell how great their work is.
Right. And I will tell you, Spencer, I mean, I know you're very keen on looking at exactly how the work gets done and of course, what the results look like. That's the ultimate reason to have a hair transplant. But,
right.
It's time also now with this huge explosion of people in the industry to find out how they're taking care of their patients.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you could be doing really, really great work, really scientific work, and treating your patients really poorly, and you don't even know it.
Yeah, I definitely...
Out there, and there are a lot of surgeons even here in the U.S., who think they're very, very scientific about what they're doing, and you just hear like horror stories about the doctor's bedside manner.
Hold on, Joe, what's the matter, Joe? You all right?
What?
Joe, you with us, buddy? How are you doing, man?
I'm in the air?
I told you you're potted up. You said you had some questions for Dr. Bauman. I said I would keep you potted up.
I'm sorry, Dr. Bauman. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic.
All right.
I was listening at the beginning of the show. I was hoping that maybe that Joe would give us his news, because I tell you, I always learn something when I listen to the Bald Truth, and mainly it's from Joe.
So, Joe, go ahead, man. We'll give you a second. Give us a little tidbit for Dr. Bauman, and then we're going to get back to our conversation.
Doctor, all due respect, I'm kind of shocked that you're not elaborating on the amazing news that Histogen has announced. 39% regrowth?
He hasn't had a chance, dude. You haven't given him a chance.
I did attend that lecture, actually. I did attend that lecture. Yes. I attended the Histogen lecture, and I have to tell you that there were a lot of skeptics in the audience.
Yes.
Some of them some very vocal and so forth.
There's always one really vocal skeptic that's from Los Angeles. Was he there?
No, I was thinking of another one.
Okay. There's another one. The guy in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Okay. He's pretty skeptical. But you know what? It's a healthy skepticism, though, because usually I think if he sees that there's some reality to the situation, he usually jumps on it.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that to some degree. But, sometimes he just likes to be skeptical because that's his thing.
Yeah. Well, so tell me about that seminar or that session.
The presentation on Histogen was quite interesting. Dr. Ziering actually did not give the presentation on Histogen this time around. It was I think it was Dr. Gail
Naughton.
Naughton, yeah, exactly. And she's I think she's the CEO of the company, if I'm not mistaken. They presented their data. Obviously, it's phase 2, and they're showing some. Well, the interesting thing is that they call it, growth of new hairs if you read the abstracts.
Right.
And I think that gets a lot of people up in arms, because most of us who are in the industry realize that you're not really making hairs from nothing. You're just kind of in these kinds of cell therapy treatments and other kinds of therapies that we have to offer patients. It's not a hair follicle coming from nothing. It's not like spontaneous generation.
Right.
We're really reversing miniaturization or hypertrophying follicles. So I think that sometimes that language turns people off. But of course, you have a very, very small number of patients, and you have just a very small maybe 1 or 2 locations where these kinds of testing is being done. And I respect Dr. Ziering for doing this kind of work, and of course, he's someone to jump on the technology if he believes it's viable as well. So, kudos to him for doing that research, and it is exciting to have something potentially to offer patients, but obviously it's not ready for prime time.
Right, and
it's not something. Even if it does work phenomenal, this is not something you can just go down to your corner-friendly neighborhood hair transplant surgeon and get a treatment.
And that's what I try to express. I try to tell guys, especially the young guys, who they're holding off. They're putting their life on hold, waiting for these technologies to come to market. I'm like, listen, we're closer than we've ever been before, but it's not there yet. If you're 25 years old and you are scared shitless to get on finasteride and won't use minoxidil, and you're waiting for the news from Histogen and Replicell, you may be waiting for a while. We're a lot closer than we were, but these poor kids are putting their life on hold, and I think it is they're kind of doing themselves a disservice, because we have great treatments that actually work now, but they don't want to use them.
Yes, and that is a very that's a very, very common problem. I mean, it's like people are holding out for that, waiting for that holy grail, the Hail Mary pass to be completed.
That's right.
And and they may be disappointed that first of all, look, the treatment may be very viable and it may work very well. But what is very well? Minoxidil works very well, but it's certainly not a miracle cure.
That's right.
Right. So if the hair follicles are dead and gone, then these kinds of treatments are not likely to produce a major cosmetic result. And that's really the key. I mean, you could grow, 6 new hairs, but, what's the length and the caliber and what's the cosmetic significance of these hairs? That really is going to make the difference. And, I think a lot of times, I'm talking to my colleagues and we're looking at the clinical trial photos, and I look at photos all day long of hair, obviously, as we all do in the hair transplant industry, and you look at the photography and you wonder, well, gosh, they're spending millions on these clinical trials. Why don't they have a photo studio?
Yeah, why don't they? Yeah, exactly. Why don't they take better pictures? It's not that difficult.
I mean, look, and I would tell it to Craig Ziering. I would tell it to him right to his face, and maybe I did this weekend, when he was there, and I said, listen, I mean, we all turned to each other. We go, "What's up with those photos?"
I told Craig the same thing. I said, not only the photos not great, you can we have great opportunity to really put video online now. There's a lot that you can do. You can actually take really good video with a nice prosumer camera, and you could get it out there in a very high end way without spending a lot of money. Why isn't this being done?
Exactly. So, I mean, we all would love to believe the numbers and the data, but, when they show 1 or 2 photos and you're looking at, this one's blasted with the flash and the next one's taken in the dark.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so blatant.
No, I understand.
How can, if for a presentation, you could have the very best data in the world, and then all of a sudden it's like, you look at the photos, you're like, well, what happened with the photos?
Yeah.
What were you doing that day? So I'm a little bit surprised at that. Now, again, I don't know if Craig was involved with taking those photos or not, or how those photos came about. Maybe it was something that they were doing, very early on, right? I don't know, but you would think spending all that money in research and development to do something in the business of hair, sharpen up the photos, man. At least get some decent lighting.
And I agree. And there's a segment of the online population that believe that the hair transplant industry, the doctors in the industry, are shitting in their pants because of these technologies, that almost as though they want to somehow keep this technology at bay. They don't want to believe that it's happening. They don't want to promote it in any way because they fear they're going to lose business. And we've talked about this before. It's insane.
That obviously is it's not what we're here to do.
But I try to explain to people that the money would be rolling in. Who do you think is going to pick up on these on these technologies? It's going to be the guys that have experience in hair.
Yeah, and any product needs a distribution channel.
That's exactly right.
So guys are going to be, and especially if it's an injectable product, it's not even something you can order on eBay, I mean, you've invented a new latest and greatest low-level laser therapy device. Maybe you can, just roll them out on eBay.
That's
right. But, an injectable treatment is going to need a doctor, and you're going to want a physician who can give you an assessment, not just your local derm who's never taken a picture of a scalp in his life.
That's right.
To do this treatment. You're going to want to go to a hair specialist who at least maybe would have some measurement tools available, and that's, that was, I think, some big news also from the conference that, not that I'm, tooting my own horn here, but I did have a presentation on hair
let's
check.
Talk about it.
And, and that I think that's really, really important, what we tried to show with the hair check device, with Dr. Bernie Cohen's device. It's a really good measurement tool.
So, so you use the hair check device. How many other guys in the industry are using hair check?
Very few.
Yeah.
Very few. I mean, maybe there's, 4 or 5 people who have hair checks in the industry. I mean,
so this hair check actually, so it measures the caliber and the weight of the hair.
Yeah. So let's talk about this because this is a very, very cool device. Dr. Bernie Cohen has been, he's a well-known, I would say, senior hair transplant surgeon who's retired actually and devoted his entire professional life, instead of doing hair transplants, doing this research to develop this product. And I remember we've been hearing about it at the ISHRS conferences for years about the concept of hair mass index. And what he's talking about is being able to bundle hairs together and scientifically measure that bundle. So, like, imagine if you gather together a bunch of sticks or a bunch of linguine noodles, and you tied a string around them, and you were able to measure how big that string was.
Right, sure.
And then if you had a different bundle of noodles, maybe fettuccine or angel hair or something, and you tied another string around those noodles, what would be the mass of that bundle? And so that's what this device actually does, and it does it in a very, very super scientific way. I mean, this is something that's been proven and tested and reproven and retested. Actually, some papers out of Europe that show just how scientifically rigorous this measurement is. So what I've been doing with the device is helping patients medically manage their hair. So it's not really for hair transplant patients per se. This is for patients who think that they might be losing hair, men and women, but who have enough hair up there to literally measure and maybe even cover their scalp, but they're wondering, hey, is that shedding significant, or is my coverage depleting? I don't feel like I have the head of hair I used to, or I've been on Propecia. Is it working? I've been on laser therapy. Did I get an improvement or not? The hair check can tell you.
Well, I think that's really valuable, especially since, there are people that are spending big bucks, walking into clinics, having low-level laser light therapy or having different, types of therapy, and they want to know exactly what's going on. A before and after picture, if you have a good studio like you do, you're gonna be able to decipher a visible difference. But to really be able to measure that, to me, that is invaluable. And I'm surprised that more guys don't do this.
Yeah, well, me too. I think that in general, the industry of hair transplant surgeons don't necessarily make it a priority to help their patients who are on medical management. And I think it's sad because, obviously we know prevention is the key to winning this battle. We have so many more tools in the toolbox now to help us protect the head of hair that you have. So, I mean, I like to be able to tell patients, hey, man, you're doing great. Look at this bump in the numbers, from the last time that you came in. And then next time, maybe it's going to plateau, but at least, we'll try to keep it at that level. So it's kind of like if you don't have the score, you don't know if you're winning the game.
Yeah, but as far as a physician's practice is concerned, it's great to, obviously there's going to be plenty of guys who need hair transplants. But if you can keep a group of guys happy for, say, 5, 6, 7 years, eventually, if they're really motivated to keep their hair and things start to wane, they're going to have a transplant anyway. So why not treat these guys? I mean, I think a fine example of that in your practice is Kevin Ralston.
Absolutely. I mean, 12, 13 years ago is when he first started losing his hair, and he came in, and I had a brief conversation with him about prevention, and he took the advice, and he's been on it. He's been basically stable for 10 years on the medication.
Yeah, and then eventually he's like, okay, it's not working right. I had a great, run with it, and now I need a hair transplant. So, I mean, the guys...
the gap.
Yeah, so the guys that are concerned about, and I don't think, I mean, there are some guys, I think a lot of the IHRS guys are, managing, trying to help guys manage their hair loss. But the guys that are really concerned about, believe it or not, there are guys in the ISHRS who won't prescribe Propecia. And it wasn't because of all the scare. The recent scare, there are guys that, for whatever reason, they say, listen, I just move hair from the back to the front. I'm not here to prescribe this drug. And there's one guy in particular that actually told me this. And I just think that's short-sighted.
Well, it's not
in the best interest of the patient.
It's certainly not in the best interest of the patient. There were big, large national clinics that said they are in the business of doing hair transplants. They weren't in the business of prescribing medication. And and although that tide has turned, and some of those guys now do prescribe Propecia, there are other doctors who are looking for every excuse not to prescribe it, but and not to prevent hair loss in their patients. And I think it's just a sad thing. I think our patients do much better when they're on medical management. They're happier that they've got a heck of a lot more hair. Our results look so much better.
That's right.
So, I mean, I have some patients who get such a result on like the new compounded medications, the new compounded topicals, plus laser, plus Propecia, that their friends think they had a hair transplant.
Now, you guys actually, you have a compounded medication that you sell out of your office, which you've told me about, but, you said that at least in your practice, you're seeing some really good results. Why don't you talk about that?
The 82M we prescribe and dispense. I'm not a pharmacy, so I have to write a prescription for it. 82M is a very, very special product. I mean, all of us know how messy Rogaine is. I mean, have you ever used minoxidil?
I used minoxidil for years, yeah.
Okay, so if you're using over-the-counter minoxidil, it's gooey, it's greasy. The foam is a little bit better, but could still cause some irritation and can still get all over your hair. So 82M helps out with a lot of those issues. A lot less irritation, dries like a hand cleanser, like a hand disinfectant, and it's got additive ingredients like retinoic acid, which increases the penetration and may have some hair growth properties to it, a mild anti-androgen, which is organic and works topically. So there's some really good benefits to this minoxidil 82M. And I wrote a white paper, and that white paper was distributed at the conference, even though it wasn't an abstract presentation. It was available at the expo area.
Well, let me. We're talking about, to get back to the conference, the general vibe of the conference. Obviously, we're talking about less invasive surgery. I mean, how are people? I mean, I know that at least in the IHRS, the industry seems to be growing, at least in our end of the field. What about the guys that are not really part of what we do and the large chain clinics? Do you think that they're having the same type of growth?
Well, I can't say what the growth is in those clinics, but for example, we know that there was an increase in 200 members at the ISHRS this year.
Yeah, that's great. Wow.
So that's a huge jump.
Yeah.
And that's an incredible jump in the numbers of physicians. And now, actually, I think American physicians are now actually in the minority.
Really?
It wasn't like that for
really?
years.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we're down at 46% American. So I think that Asia and Europe and so forth, I think all the new members are coming from there.
Look, I was just asked to do a plastic surgery show. I just did a show last week. Excuse me. And the guy that I was interviewing, the guy that I did the live surgery show with, is interested in getting into hair restoration. And he asked me about it. And this is a guy, board-certified plastic surgeon, who actually sees what's happening in the less invasive hair transplant world. And he was asking me about FUE and asking me about the ARTIS and the NeoGraft and all these different devices. And so it's definitely starting to get kind of a crossover to the mainstream as far as cosmetic surgery is concerned. And I think part of that is because we're seeing much better results, and also the demand is growing because of those better results.
Yes, I agree. And unfortunately, there's a huge segment of the ISHRS that is pretty scared of that.
Yes, I know that.
Yeah, they're pretty scared about that. Now, the problem, I think, comes in, first of all, these devices definitely make FUE easier. I mean, I can tell you, harvesting with a manual punch is not easy to do, and I designed the manual punches to do the FUE process, and it really wasn't until the darn thing got automated, or mechanical at least, did we get better quality grafts and a more repeatable result in terms of harvesting. But as you know, hair transplantation is a lot more than just getting the hair.
Well, that's what I explained to this guy. I said, listen,
well, that's good.
I said, it's going to be like at least a 5-year learning curve. You have no idea how difficult it is, the infrastructure that you have to build in your practice, to have the right staff, to really get that, that feel to do this the right way. It takes, this is a guy who's really good at what he does, but this is not what he does. So I kind of explained to him, you might want to just stick to doing facelifts and brow lifts and the stuff that you do.
Right. And that's, listen, if somebody wants to expand their practice and learn different things, more power to them, but they're going to, to think that they can just go and take a weekend course, and set up shop.
Well, you have to understand that's how cosmetic surgery in general works. So people think that's the way that it's going to work. Hair transplantation, I've said this so many times, is probably one of the most difficult disciplines to really master, because it's not just you. You have to actually have a team that is so well trained that you guys kind of work as kind of like an instrument to make this happen. Yeah.
It's a huge symphony of detail, and of course, my team has been with me, for almost 15 years. The same team. Most of my technicians have well over a decade of experience,
right?
And they're amazing at what they do, and we work hand in hand. We work together to get the work done, and that's a critical part. And look, there are a lot of hair transplant surgeons whose technicians, it's like a revolving door. And, they can't keep good people. They don't attract good people.
Well, look, just for everyone who's in the chat room and who's listening to the program, I basically told this guy I'm not going to help him, because I know how difficult. And this is a really good plastic surgeon, but it takes such a commitment. And I don't think that anyone who's doing noses and facelifts and chins and boobs and all that stuff really has the time to commit to, creating that infrastructure that you need to do great hair transplants.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And some people maybe say, "Oh, well, I guess just protecting his turf." But I'll tell you, it's really true that you don't want to bring in the plumber to do your electrical work.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say, hey, Alan, you know what? These guys are doing minimally these mid facelifts. It's really easy to do. You should you should start doing that. I'm not going to tell you to do that.
Right.
So, and that's the way I think that cosmetic surgery is looked at. And I've learned a lot, since I actually started doing this thing.
Yeah. How is that going along?
It's amazing. It really is. There's actually, I think there's more of a need because that part of the industry is growing so quickly.
Sure.
For doing what we do in that side of the field, because hair has come a long way. I have to say, since we started the Bald Truth, at least we're not seeing, at least here in the States, we're seeing some stuff coming out of Asia and other parts of the world that really look like shit. But at least here in the States, for the most part, the work is not, even the guys who are not doing great work, they're not butchering people. So we're seeing an evolution that we just, 10 years ago, there was only a handful of guys doing really acceptable work. I think that's changed.
So would you say, this is an interesting question. You were the main clearinghouse for complaints in the hair industry.
Yeah.
Do you see a change in the number or style or scope of the complaints from 10 years ago to now?
I don't see a change in the number of complaints, but I see but I see a change in the type of complaints.
Okay.
So we are not seeing these guys who have these, crazy, flaps and scalp reductions and, scalp lifts that were being done 10 years ago. And, even 5 years ago, some guys were doing this. We're not seeing those complaints, but we are seeing complaints that are kind of like they're not happy with the density, or there are some guys who are still placing like 2 and 3 hair grafts and hairline, stuff like that. But for the most part, these guys aren't being butchered and they're repairable. Where, when I started, these guys were not repairable. Guys' lives are really being destroyed. So I definitely see an evolution. I see a really strong change. But there's plenty of complaints. That's just the way that it is.
Right.
Why do you think I can't grow the IHRS? I'd love to.
Yeah, no, I understood. Yeah, absolutely.
So do you? We can get back to the conference in a sec, but we have some calls. I'm sure some guys want to ask you some questions. So.
Oh yeah, sure.
All right, let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hey, Spencer.
George. Holy shit! Where have you been for the last 15 weeks?
Well, I'll tell you, I was working on working with some patriot groups on election-oriented stuff, which I'm not going to get into.
Okay.
And then I had a friend of mine I worked with about 27 years ago from Jersey that passed away in Georgetown at 53 unexpectedly.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, man.
And so I was kind of dealing with the fallout from that, and then I got sick. So I'm kind of you have to forgive me for clearing my throat, and I'll try to keep my comments brief because I'm not speaking very well this evening. But I feel very privileged to have Dr. Bauman on the phone. I've spoken with him once before. Dr. Bauman, this is George, pseudonym
George. I remember you very well.
Yeah, from Mobile, Alabama. Doctor, the last time we spoke, and I've kind of been in and out of the scene the last few months because of a lot of work and personal stuff going on, but I know you just attended this conference down in Atlantis at the Bahamas, and it sounds all exciting, but pardon me if something has gone completely over my head, but those of us who've been hanging on and dealing with hair loss for decades and still hanging in there, those of us who have not needed to do anything draconian as of this point, which has been kind of maintaining or slowly losing ground by just hanging in there with the Propecia. One of the big things has always been where is the breakthrough on the neogenesis thing, where they can take some DHT-resistant follicles from the back of the head and grow an unlimited number of new hair follicles that you guys can then use your artistry to place them and create pretty much a brand new full-looking head of hair. that's been like the holy grail, and I hear you guys talking all this stuff, but I don't hear anybody coming back to that issue, or did it just go over my head?
Well, I mean, Dr. Bauman was actually at the conference, so I'm sure he heard something about that with Adirans and the other companies, right?
Yes, of course. I mean, every year, George, Dr. Ken Washenik gives a phenomenal talk about the status of this kind of hair cloning research, if you use a layman's term, or cellular multiplication. But I have to tell you that it seems like the kinds of things that they're talking about now has kind of moved a little bit away from this, the multiplication of hair follicles and reimplantation. I mean, that's really not what they're doing, really not what they're aiming for, it seems to me. It seems to me that the cell therapy that they're working on is really just going to rejuvenate the follicles that are already there.
Well, that was a better idea to begin with, but we were told that was probably even a less likely probability to be able to reawaken. I hear you mentioned something earlier, and I apologize to interrupt you. Just to make sure I get this straight in my head, Doctor. You mentioned something about dead follicles. It was my understanding from 20-something years of following this stuff from the publishing of Spencer's original book up to the present time. I know the concept has changed, but we were told for a long time that some hair follicles were dead. Then we were told later none of them actually died. They're just in this dormant phase, that could be reawakened. And some people discovered that, accidentally with Proscar for the prostate, and then that kicked the whole thing off with Propecia. Are you still of the opinion that every hair we've ever lost, the follicle is still viable? It still could be reawakened, or are some of them in fact dead and gone forever?
Well, I think that there's some in between there. Now, remember that the results that you're seeing with, let's say, a medical regimen, when we're talking about Propecia, Proscar, finasteride, or even minoxidil or laser therapy, it's kind of a reversal of that miniaturization, meaning that the follicle hasn't passed the break point, so to speak. And so some of these medications and treatments and so forth can rejuvenate that hair follicle because it's not too far gone. And then, of course, I deal with patients who have extensive baldness, and they undergo medical regimens, and there's really no regrowth or no improvement in their current pattern, meaning that they're at a kind of a flat stage, meaning that those follicles are basically beyond what the medical treatments that we have available today can do, and that's when they need transplants in those areas. But the interesting thing is that there's been some data and research that shows that maybe there's some residual stem cells or some other remnant of the follicles that still exist in that bald scalp. And so the hope down in the future is that we can figure out what exactly would be the mixture of either implantation or chemicals or signals that we send to those stem cells to get them to grow back into a regular follicle. Unfortunately, right now, not to say that the research is at a standstill, because research is never at a standstill. It's always just moving forward. There's just no viable product that's going to be coming out next year that's going to regrow your head of hair like that. It's just not. They're not there. These things happen in baby steps, and these companies need a lot of cash to keep them going, and they need a little bit of luck, like a breakthrough, to get to the next level. And it just seems like, not that we're at an impasse, but just seems like a very, very slow progression of these clinical trials. And it's nice to hear the update, but I wish I could come home from the conference and say, hey, George, Spence, Joe, this is what we got. They were able to grow this head of hair, and they multiplied it in a petri dish, and we're implanting it tomorrow. And
but again, when you come on the air, or any guy in the industry, there's these guys that really believe that somehow we are keeping this from them, that we are trying to hold on for dear life so that we can continue to make a living in this industry.
Listen. My dad. You've talked to my dad.
Yes.
You've seen his photos. My dad has had over 7,500 follicular units implanted.
And he looks amazing.
To recreate from a Class 7 Norwood the best coverage that I could do with the technology available.
Right.
If I had this technology available, my dad would be first in line.
Of course.
Okay, he would be the first.
And I would
in line.
hope that I'm second in line.
That would apply. Well, maybe my father-in-law might be number 2.
Okay.
But he had the old plugs done years and years ago.
Right.
He did some great. Okay, and Spencer would be number 3.
And then Joe, number 4. Okay.
Where am I in the lineup? Hey, Kobren, where am I in
You
the
could
lineup?
be 5.
So, we would love to have this technology available. Surgeons would be the ones delivering this. Look, Adaran spent all this money. It's what they're worked on is even the delivery system. They developed a special kind of injection device. It's a special kind of syringe, which delivers like 4 microliters per injection of whatever this mixture of goo they're going to create.
Right.
And so they're prepared to roll it out, but it's just not ready for rollout. And it's just, you're not seeing like this bear to hair picture.
And that's what I'm concerned about these guys who, like I said, who are hoping against hope that this is going to happen next year or the year after, and they're putting their lives on hold, based on press releases and these companies that are maybe presenting their findings on our forum, Bald Truth Talk or whatever. And I try to explain to them, listen, we have some great options now. Do your best to live your life. Eventually, if you're young, you're going to see this happen. But it's not going to happen now.
I hope we do see it happen. We would love to be able to, deliver that. I think what's going to end up happening first is that we'll have some kind of, let's just call it cell therapy that's injectable, a process that delivers some kind of modestly, cosmetically significant hair. So you definitely have some improvement, but I just don't see that in a big picture way. I just don't see these guys growing like a full head of teenager hair back from this stuff. It's just
what I see is
that's not what's happening in the lab.
Yeah, I see combination therapy. Like exactly what you said, plus maybe a combination of finasteride or a minoxidil latisse type product, surgical hair restoration. You can basically live your life with a decent looking head of hair, but you have to realize that there's limitations. And a lot of the young guys aren't willing to accept that. And I always tell these guys, as you get older, you're going to be, you're more apt and more willing to accept some of the limitations and, just deal with, and feel lucky with what you have. I'm one of those guys. I saved a lot of hair, but I paint my head. That's a limitation. But I still feel very comfortable in my own skin at this point, relatively comfortable. And I kind of figured out a way to feel and live my life fully, even though I know I'm a hair loss sufferer. And I think that's key. A lot of guys just don't think they could accept living at least the way that I live. Or, like Joe from Staten Island. This guy lives under a hat. And he's got a lot of options, but he won't accept those options as being something that could really help him. So, I don't know. George?
Dr. Bauman, if I could make one quick follow-up question. The stuff, Spencer, that came out a few years ago with the old man that cut his finger off with the screwing around with the hobby planes?
Yeah.
And they put that magic pixie dust on the end of his finger that, regenerated and stem cells or something migrated there. I don't know exactly what caused it, but he ended up growing back the end of his finger. When we all saw that, we thought, hey, man, they got some technology now that can create this stem cell effect, and we're going to be able to reboot these hair follicles. Is there any talk of whatever that technology was? Is it still possibly being brought into this hair loss scenario, or is that all just gone and forgotten?
No, absolutely. And, Dr. Jerry Cooley, a friend and a colleague, always talks about A-cell. I use A-cell in my practice, although not as prolifically as some other doctors do. A-cell is what we're talking about here is an acellular product. It's made from porcine bladder, pig bladder, and they take the cells out of it, and basically it's a bioscaffold. So, like if you have an injury, for example, like the guy that cut off his finger, if you just let it heal on its own, your body creates a scar, and the scar is essentially is what your body does to kind of build that scaffold itself. But if you put this bioscaffold on there, your body doesn't have to work as hard. It actually kind of builds the skin around it, and then eventually it degrades it. So the A-cell has a couple of different properties. It has this bioscaffold, and it also has growth factors. And these are both really, really good things if you're trying to heal wounds. how does that relate to hair? Well, of course, we're doing hair transplant surgery. We want people to heal better. We don't want people to heal with a scar. We want the vasculature, the blood flow to improve. So, the A-cell can help with that. But what they've also found is that if you inject A-cell in kind of a, let's just call it a slurry, like a mixture, if you inject the A-cell mixture in an area that's kind of thinning, very often you can get kind of a rejuvenation effect of the hair follicles. Not like new follicles are rebooting or follicles are being created from nothing, but more of like this deminiaturization or improvement of the hair follicles from the action of that injection. So that's what's happening, and there's a couple of other new types of cell therapy products that are going to be coming out pretty soon. That are kind of related in that same vein. So we have PRP, which is derived from your blood, that contains growth factors from the platelets that can be injected into the scalp. You've got A-cell. There's a few other things that are out there.
Doc, what we're learning is, all PRP doesn't seem to be created equal. And I am seeing that. I'm seeing guys who are using it in their practice that seem to get results. I know Joe Greco is getting, really good results, actually. I know somebody in my personal life who flies down to see Joe. And she is a family member, and she goes down, and she's been down there like 8 times.
Yeah.
And she really believes that it has stopped the progression of her hair loss. She's a middle-aged woman.
Sure.
And she is very happy with the results.
Yeah. I've been happy with the results of PRP on my patients as well. And many times when we use it as a standalone therapy, I do mix it with the A-cell, and I think that helps improve the results. Some people believe it's redundant. You already have the scaffold, from the platelet and the fibrin mixture. Why do you have to add the A-cell? But it seems to be that there's something that's going on there. Now, remember that when you do PRP, if you have a patient or a person who's not necessarily in the best of health, you're only getting the platelets from however healthy that patient is.
That makes sense, yeah.
So it can vary patient to patient. Because it's your own body stuff. You're not getting a specific dose of platelets. You're just getting, let's just call it twice the normal concentration.
So that's really an interesting concept. So why isn't there some sort of a protocol for patients who are considering having this done? Say, listen, you have to eat, a certain diet. You have to take care of yourself. Why isn't that part of the protocol to say, if you do this, there's a much greater potential of having better results?
That's a great idea, and I don't necessarily know, what exactly, what lifestyle habits would improve the growth factors in your platelets. But think about this. You put 2 people together. We cut people all day long, right, with hair transplant surgery.
Right.
How come one person heals in 4.5 days, and the other person, it takes 10 days?
Well, I can tell you this, that if there are times where I am eating cheeseburgers and drinking, wine, and then there are, points in my life where I am juicing and just eating raw food, and all of a sudden the inflammatory issues that I have, when I'm working out, my shoulder or whatever, just disappear. I am, and I just feel much more lucid. I am just, functioning at a much higher level just because I changed my diet. For a short period of time, like 2 weeks.
Yeah, no question that our diet has an effect. And what we call, in hair loss, we call these epigenetic factors.
Right.
So, for example, you had these twin studies that were done, I don't know, let's say about a year ago. There was a plastic surgeon that was looking at twins. He goes to this twin conference, and he takes pictures of twins in his research booth. And he looks at the receding hairlines of men or women, or coverage of the scalp in genetically identical people, but there's differences. And then he gives them a survey to try to figure out, well, what's the difference between this twin A and this twin B in their lifestyle that maybe would be exacerbating their hair loss situation. And they come up with, there's a whole laundry list of things that affect your hair. So it ranges from divorce to smoking, drinking, and your diet, nutrition, and health status, and the amount of sleep that you get.
So I know that the guys that are doing PRP, they're not going to tell people to avoid having it done if they're not living a better lifestyle. But it might be beneficial to, I think, to the therapy, to the industry, and to the patient if we can somehow work up some sort of a protocol. Well, at least, take this out of your diet, try to eat, these foods, and you might have a better chance of having good results. And it would be great if we
I
could
think
somehow
that's
figure
just
that
good
out.
Advice to grow better hair, Spencer. I
agree.
I've written a bunch of different articles on foods for hair growth and things like that, and we all know that hair loss does contain an inflammatory process. So if you are normalizing that level of inflammation, whether it be avoiding allergens in what you're eating and things like that, there's a whole host of things.
Look, I wrote the first chapter in any mainstream publication on diet and hair loss, as far as eating an anti-inflammatory diet. And I believed that, wholeheartedly when I wrote that article. And I was lucky enough to have Barry Sears write a couple of pages for my first book, The Bald Truth. There's no doubt in my mind that it really is a tremendous advantage for people to change their diet when they're trying to treat their hair loss, whether they're using finasteride or minoxidil or low-level laser light therapy or having a hair transplant. Most people won't take that step, though.
Right. No, you're
Dr.
right.
Bauman?
It's funny, somebody in the chat room says that doctors are clueless about nutrition, and they're absolutely right. We are. You know what we're taught in allopathic medical schools, in MD? The amount of nutrition information that I got, back when I was in medical school, you could write on the back of a matchbook with a crayon. It was terrible.
Sure, yeah.
It was just like, here's your list of vitamins, and here's what happens if you take too many. That'll end you up in the hospital.
I know, yeah.
So,
Listen,
so these are things that we have to learn on our own.
Now, we have a full board of calls. George, I know you want to ask another question, and I need to take a break. Dr. Bauman, do you want to go to the next segment, or do you need to leave?
Well, it's up to you, man. You can kick me out if you want.
Oh, no,
I'd love anything else coming on.
I would love to have you on, but it's up to you. It's late, on the East Coast. I don't want you to hang out if you don't have time.
It's no problem. I'm hanging.
All right, George, listen, I'm gonna keep you on hold. I know you have another question. We have callers on the line.
I have a question. I just wanted to tell Dr. Bauman to check out something if you wanted to see something. The greatest thing I've ever seen on epigenetics. There was a Nova episode that came out 2 years ago called Stress, Portrait of a Killer. You can Google it up, watch it online. It gets deeply into epigenetics and the effect on the human genome, and even through generationally, how it can affect it. And if you will watch that, I think you will you'll be fascinated and go get some new insight.
And by the way, Mick Phillips, in the chat room says you need your own show. And the truth of the matter is you have your own show. You have a local radio show.
I was about to type that into the chat room. I was about to type it in.
You have a local radio show in Boca and West Palm Beach area?
Yeah, it actually, you can listen to it all through South Florida. It airs on 3 stations over the weekend on FM, but it is streaming on the internet. You can listen on the weekends, and there's a lot of old episodes now. We've got a bunch of episodes up on the website. So you want me to plug it? It's live.
Absolutely.
Livehair.tv.
Look, it's all, come on. We promote each other.
That's
what this is all about.
Livehair.tv. I'll put it into the chat room.
All right.
So people can go check it out. I've got some really cool song parodies. Oh man, I should have sent those over to you for tonight's show.
That would have been pretty funny.
Oh my God. Well, next time I'll send you over the parodies.
Absolutely.
Check them out. I got about 6 or 8 of them.
Listen, there are a lot of guys out there in the industry that have attempted to do what we do here at The Bald Truth, but I will tell you that I think that Dr. Bauman will probably be very successful because he is a guy that not only is he personable, but, and he knows his stuff, but he understands what it takes to create something that's entertaining. And I got to tell you, Doc, these other guys, they were all abject failures at trying to do their own show. And,
What other guys?
There are a lot of guys. There was, I have a laundry list since I started to do this.
I don't know.
But I will tell you that
my show is a lot of fun. It's a little bit different than yours. It has a little bit different flavor. It's a little bit lighter. I have to tell you.
Sure. Well, you don't have Joe.
A little bit lighter.
But now that he knows about your show, who do you think's going to call you?
Well, it's a good thing we're not. It's called Live Hair, but we tape the first one live and all that. But it's actually pre-record most of the show.
You're lucky.
So if Joe wants to be on the air, he'd actually have to call in while I'm recording it in the studio.
All right, but I never actually had the chance to congratulate you. I want to congratulate you on the show, and I took the time to listen to it, and you guys did a great job. Let me give out the phone number, 888-659-3727. I'm going to take a quick break, guys. But when I come back, of course, Dr. Alan Bauman, IAHRS accepted member, will continue to hang out and answer your questions. We have a full board, so please stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages. Stay with us.
The man who's helping to make hair loss history.
They wish to cure us, but I say we are the cure.
It's Spencer David Kobren.
Hey guys, welcome back. 888-659-3727, toll free, coast to coast and worldwide. You are listening to and watching The Bald Truth, self-help radio for guys. And of course, unfortunately for girls who get it, 2/3 of you by the age of 35 will suffer with some degree of hair loss. 40% of hair loss sufferers are women. That sounds like a crazy statistic, but it's the truth. It sounds like it's, hyperbole. That it's not true. But if you ask any, and we'll ask Dr. Bauman in a second, but anybody in this field who sees hair loss patients day in and day out, they will tell you how many young women are dealing with hair loss. I'm not talking about, chicks my age. I'm talking about girls who are 25, 26, 27 years old, might have started birth control at an early age. A lot of times, and the, pharmaceutical companies won't tell you this. And sadly, the prescribing doctors, the gynecologists who are prescribing birth control pills to young women, they see it. It's happening in their practice, but for whatever reason, they don't see the data, so they say that it's not as prevalent as it really is. But the truth is, it's very prevalent as far as, causing hair loss in young women. It's just the way that it is. And I'm noticing more and more that it appears that hair loss is affecting women at a younger age. And I'm convinced that it's because of drugs like, oral contraceptives and Accutane. And we can talk about that with Dr. Bauman. But, we don't talk a lot about, female hair loss on this broadcast. But it's a very important aspect of what we do here. Because there are so many women that contact us through the Bald Truth, through the American Hair Loss Association, even through the IHRS, who are looking for hope. And sadly, there's not much we can really do for women, at least as far as drug therapy. I mean, minoxidil works, but there is a school of thought. There are guys like Dr. Alan Bauman who really believe in low-level laser light therapy for women. I'm becoming more and more of a believer in PRP therapy for women's hair loss. So I want you guys to understand, if you know a woman who's dealing with hair loss, if there's a woman out there that is in need of help, call the show. Have her call the show. This isn't just a guy's show. It's a show for anyone who is dealing with hair loss. 888-659-3727. I'll pot the guys up. Dr. Bauman, I know that sounds like a crazy statistic, but it's the reality.
Absolutely. There are tens of millions of American women out there with hair loss, and I see, I don't know if you know this, but 50% of my patients that I see in consultation are women.
Crazy.
It's a huge number. And, but a lot of people don't think about women and hair loss because women, they're not going completely bald. It's not, woman's not going to end up looking like Michael Jordan typically.
Right.
Or Telly Savalas. They're going to do things to help cover their thinning zones, and whether it's a hairstyle or hair extension.
Yeah, but a woman could wear a hair piece and
get away with it.
And get away with it because guys aren't looking for that. It's covering their. It's not as much. You're not focusing on the hairline. Most women will keep the integrity of their hairline, so they could wear something behind it. And it just looks like women wear hair for style, so no one looks twice.
It's true. But there are a lot of celebrity women with terrible hair loss.
That's right.
You look at Naomi Campbell has been photographed with the in really compromised positions where she's got the weave attached.
Yeah, but that was self-inflicted hair loss. That is for the most part that's probably traction alopecia.
Yes, well, you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
But listen, certain ethnic populations are going to be more prone to that because they're going to want to wear hair. But yes, you're right. The genetic female pattern hair loss, is not self-inflicted, and it can strike anytime after puberty.
Right.
We see a lot of women who are born with very, very fine caliber hair. Their hair mass numbers are very low to begin with, and their, the diameter is just very, very thin. Without going into the details, if they have very fine hair, even with great density, they're going to have a coverage problem.
That's right.
And they go swimming in the beach, the pool, or whatever, in the wind and the rain, and it could really just demolish the coverage of their scalp. It just looks like they're drowning rats.
Yeah, and you have no idea. You see a woman in the street. Like I grew up in New York, so I would see women on the subway, and that's really when when I became hypersensitive about my own hair loss. I'd be riding the subway, and I started to realize how many women are losing their hair. That clear Ludwig pattern.
Yep.
And it was so obvious. And I'm talking about 20-year-old girls. At the time, girls who were my age. And I was thinking, do they even know? I mean, I'm sure they did. But most guys don't notice that. I was hypersensitive to it. And I started to realize early on that, I think it's a slightly growing phenomenon. But even back 20 years ago, it was happening, to the point where, most people wouldn't notice it, but I saw it happening. And doing what you do, I mean, you must have women coming into your office who are crying.
It's an emotional thing. Yeah, everybody's crying. When the women come in and they have a hair loss situation, the whole office is crying.
Yeah,
It's very emotional, and it's a terrible situation. But the good news is that now we have technology that can help them.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because you really focus. Like you said, 50% of your practice is dealing with women's hair loss, female hair loss. So you're one of the guys that takes this seriously. And
absolutely, we take it seriously.
But there are guys in this industry that don't. They'd rather just move hair and deal with deal with guys, and not deal with the emotional aspects of women's hair loss, which can be, it's devastating for a woman. So I think a lot of practices really kind of shy away from that.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that. It's been a part of my practice since the beginning. I always thought that we were going to be dealing with, older gentlemen, looking to date younger women. I mean, that's what I thought the practice was going to be in Boca Raton. And it really, that was a big misconception. I mean, that was mine, how naive I was, when I started the practice 15 years ago, that's what it was going to be like. And we quickly went from 90% men, like the first year, and it blossomed into 50% women within a very short period of time. So it's always been a part of the practice. And I think having women who have significant hair loss has made me a better surgeon, because I've had to work on tools and techniques and so forth in order to be able to do hair transplants for women.
Right.
And get it to be good.
Well, but and I'm very honest about my stance on women and hair transplants. I remember I was asked to, I don't think I wrote a piece, but I was asked by Dr. Jeffrey Redmond, who wrote what was the name of that book? Women's Hormones? I forget it. But anyway, he asked me about my stance on hair transplantation for women. I'm very conservative when it comes to that. Again, I'm not a physician, but I'm very conservative because I know that most women suffer from a diffuse type of hair loss. So if you are moving hair from the back that is not stable, eventually that hair will shed. And that will miniaturize, I should say. And it could take 10 years. Right. It could take 10 years, but eventually they're going to be wearing hair. They're going to be out the money for a hair transplant, and they're going to have a scar in the back of their head when guys were doing it, strip surgery on women. And they are going to end up wearing hair anyway. So I usually advise women to really do their due diligence, make sure that they are a candidate for surgical hair restoration, as opposed to just going to a doctor and saying, I want a hair transplant, because there's plenty of guys that would just do it.
Well, that's definitely true. And they have to maximize their non-invasive treatments. And, it's not as simple as just, like for men, we have Propecia, and we know that works 90% of the time. I mean, for women, it's going to be more difficult. They've got to use maybe combinations of laser plus minoxidil.
Right.
But I'll tell you, if the density in the zone that they want to fill is depleted enough, and I can get literally an instrument in between to make a site to plant a follicular unit, and I've done a hair check measurement or a microscopy of the scalp to see their donor area and to see that it's relatively solid, then that's a patterned hair loss, and we transplant those, and we get great results with those, Spencer.
Right. Well, I am starting to, become more open to the idea that there are more women who might be candidates than I originally thought. So, in all fairness, I've seen some really great hair transplants in women. However, I would prefer women to have kind of the less invasive procedures, obviously, because a lot of times, in the long run, I still believe that they may lose the battle. And for them to have to suffer with a linear scar when they are 50 years old, if they choose not to wear hair or whatever it is. I just think it's kind of putting them at a great disadvantage. So if you're willing to do FUE or whatever it is, and the patient understands that it can take time, that's a process, and they may not get 4,000 grafts in one session, then I say, okay, maybe that's an option for you.
Yeah,
but are you doing strips on women at this point?
Well, I have. I mean, most women today honestly get FUE.
Right.
And I had some colleagues at the conference. They're like, why would you do FUE in a woman? Well, there's actually a couple of good reasons to do that. A lot of women don't want to go under the knife.
I agree with that. I think for most women, if they're going to have a hair transplant, and again, there's guys in the IHRS who may disagree. I think doing a smaller FUE procedure to kind of test the waters is a safer bet than going right in with a strip. So I don't know if you agree with that.
I think it's a good plan. We can hide that area very easily underneath their existing hair. To get the hair, and then when it heals, it's completely undetectable because they have so much hair back there.
Right.
And they don't have to. And a lot of our women are very active. Remember that we're here in Florida. People are outside. They're playing tennis and golf and things like that. They don't want to have to take weeks off from their activity regimen. I'm sure it's the same in Southern California. Everybody wants to look good and feel good.
That's right.
If they're on an exercise regimen, they can't be hanging out with stitches in their scalp.
That's right. No, I listen. I am. I still, listen. A lot of the guys in the IHRS are still doing strip, and they're doing strip and FUE. The truth of the matter is, and you've done many strips in your practice. I mean,
6,000 of them.
Yeah, strip procedures.
3 of them on my dad.
That's right. Can be an extremely great option for a lot of guys. However, with that said, the evolution of the less invasive follicular unit, that's a tough one, extraction method, and what you're doing and what some other guys are really embracing in their practice, it makes a lot of sense. And I can definitely see why, especially younger guys, are gravitating towards this, because a lot of younger guys are wearing their hair much tighter. I mean, listen, I wear my hair pretty long in the back. So if I was to get a hair transplant, I might.
You're stuck in the 70s, Spencer.
Well, I'm actually early 80s, but yeah. But the truth is, I would consider for sure, because I would want to get the entire sweet spot. I also know that you get more. For me, having a strip wouldn't be the end of the world. I don't mind having the scar in the back because I'm not going to cut my hair to a number 1 or a number 2, but a lot of guys will. And they don't want to. They want to have that option. For me, it's not a big deal.
Right. The other thing is, we're talking about the women hair loss. I do a lot of hairline lowering, and I do that with grafting. I don't use flaps or incisions to move the hairline in women. If it's just a small hairline lowering, I do that with grafting, and I'm pretty happy with the density I'm getting there. I'm also doing eyebrows for women and eyelashes, and many times covering up plastic surgery scars and brow lift scars. So we do a lot of those other indications for transplantation are good too.
Well, absolutely. And let's take a phone call. Let's see who this is. Hey, who's this? You're on the air.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, Spencer. This is Chris, the one that you helped get the refund for.
Oh, hey, Chris. What's happening, man?
Hey, how you doing? I just thought I would call in and tell Dr. Bauman my story and see what he thought about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Bauman.
Sure. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Pretty good. 3 years ago, I had a strip procedure. I kind of jumped the gun and did it before I found Spencer and the Bald Truth, and I didn't do enough research and stuff. And unfortunately, after the surgery, about a year after the surgery, I started to develop a lot of head pains, a lot of headaches, constant headaches. Pain in the back of my head, and the headaches aren't as bad as they used to be, thankfully. I'll still get a couple a week. Before, like last year, I would get them every day. I was living on ibuprofen, and because I just couldn't deal with the pain. But the back of my head has never felt right, since the surgery. It was a small surgery. It was about 1,500 hairs, and I think maybe only 20 regrew, if that. I'm not exaggerating either. It was that small of an amount. The people that did my surgery, they kind of brushed me aside and didn't really, help me very much. I found Spencer, and he was able to get me a refund for the surgery. But
And by the way, just to point this out, they were not IHRS members. So it was a relatively small chain clinic. These guys are based out of Pittsburgh. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it was a bad decision on my part.
I mean, just can I ask you a question? First of all, how old are you?
I'm 32. I was 29 when I had the surgery.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard to remember, like signing these forms of informed consent. You put your signature and it says that anything that can go wrong, is anything possibly can go wrong. It's not their fault and such. Did anybody ever tell you that you could get prolonged discomfort of the scalp?
No, everybody I've talked to after the surgery, different doctors. I've been to two neurologists. I've had an MRI of my head. I've had a CAT scan of my head afterwards to try to figure out what all these problems were. And no, like from what I've heard, I'm like 1 in a million that this would happen to. No doctor has ever heard of this before, of these problems. No hair transplant doctor has ever heard of these problems, especially to have it 3 years afterwards. Luckily, I'm like right now, I don't, like if I would do, for example, an FUE, I don't think I would need a lot of work done, maybe just a couple hundred hairs in the front, and then a little bit in the back. I'm lucky because of that, but because of my bad history, do you think that an FUE would be something I should look into in the future, or I just kind of wanted to see what your thoughts about that were.
Where are you located?
I'm about 30 minutes from Pittsburgh in Ohio.
Well, we can find a great FUE surgeon up in the Northeast for you. No, I'm just teasing you. No, but I would just, maybe, but you'd have to understand that obviously there is some invasiveness to FUE, even though we're very superficial. We're not going to the deep layers. I mean, it is possible. Maybe I would like to do, if I was to even consider doing a procedure for you, I would probably want to go in an area that's very far away from where you have the pain. It's
weird.
If you have a neuropathy, has anyone ever tried to inject you with local anesthetic in the area where you have the discomfort to see if it's truly like a nerve ending?
Well, last year from September to December, I went to a dermatologist and got steroid injections in my head in certain areas where it was hurting. I haven't had to go back since December to get it. Luckily, it has improved from that. I'm thinking about doing Botox injections. At some point, I don't know if I should do that or not, but
well, there's a couple of different ways. I mean, I'm not a neurologist, so I'm not an expert in neuropathic pain, pains that are caused by the nerve. I mean, obviously, what could have happened? I'm just theorizing. Maybe during the procedure, a nerve ending was cut, or maybe a deep stitch was placed that kind of strangled the nerve, and then you get like this what we call a neuroma, like an overgrowth of the nerve as it kind of heals in that area. I mean, those are all possibilities. One of the things I would the first thing I would look for if you were a patient of mine would be to see if there's an ingrown hair caught under there somewhere. Was it a trichophytic closure?
I'm sorry, I don't know what that means.
Well, a closure where they close it, they overlap it to allow hair to grow through the scalp.
No, it was just
regular.
Fortunately, I have a very good scar. I guess I got really lucky, and my scar is really small and thin and stuff. But
is it right on the scar line that you have pain, or is it just kind of all over the place?
Yeah, no. Ironically, there was never any pain in the scar. It's just like on the back right part of my scalp, which is weird because they said they put 500 hairs in the spot on my crown and the left side where I'm losing some hair there, which none regrew. But I didn't really have any pain on that side. It was just on the right side where they didn't really operate on, and that's where all the pain is. Like, how sometimes you have bumps in the back of your head?
Yep.
I have some of those, and in some certain areas on those bumps, like if I just touch certain ones, those hurt. But it's really weird how it's worked out. So it's kind of made me worry that...
I would honestly be pretty cautious with you because, I mean, the last thing we want to do is, let's just say you're the 1 in a million where you've got, like, superficial nerve endings. I mean, and maybe that... could have been damaged by just the regular style of transplantation or FUE style of transplantation. I mean, you wouldn't want to necessarily go through all that again to make your situation worse. So, there's a possibility. I have to tell you that, sometimes old patients who have had old style work, and I have heard of scalp pain from transplants, prolonged scalp pain. Most of those patients that have come to me with that problem are patients who have had the old style plug type transplants from years and years ago that were very, very deep. When they literally cored out that big plug of 4 millimeter punch graft from the back of the scalp, they kind of went pretty deep in some of those cases, and they were just left to heal on their own. Some patients have a lot of pain in those areas. Interestingly, with the old style strip harvest, sometimes resolves that for those patients. But in your case, I would be, if you were my patient and you were thinking about having an FUE process, we would talk about how minimally invasive the FUE is, but we would talk about the fact that your situation might get worse because having another surgical procedure. And I know that you want to get hair, that's why you went and had the hair transplant in the first place. But I would certainly have a long discussion about what the risks might be.
And Doc, we've been telling this for a while. I've told Chris, you might not want to have surgery at this point. He wrote me an email the other day asking me to try to convince him to take finasteride because he was, overly concerned about taking the drug. And I told you, Chris, I'm not here to convince you to take a drug.
Right.
That's not my job, dude. I had great success with finasteride. If you are interested,
I would say, what about laser therapy? I mean, laser is a natural anti-inflammatory. Okay, so if inflammation is causing a bit of this problem, and you would get an anti-inflammatory effect, and you also may get some hair regrowth out of it.
The problem with for Chris is that he has very, very limited funds, so he really can't afford to go into a clinic and have laser therapy. And maybe he can try the laser cap or something like that. But Chris, what's your financial situation now? I mean, the last time we spoke, you said you were not doing that well.
Yeah, it's about the same, unfortunately. I had to get an MRI because of my back. It's really limiting me because of all the pain that I have, all the, how bad my back is. I had an MRI about a week ago with my back and my head at the same time, so I'm kind of supposed to see a neurologist about both of them here in the upcoming weeks, and hopefully maybe get
what? I'd be curious at this point. Why don't you, you email me, relatively, every few months. Send me some pictures. Let me see what's going on with you.
Okay.
And maybe I can give you some advice.
Okay, I'll do that.
There are a lot of pain specialists out there. There's a lot of different ways to attack the pain. Sometimes they do even like neurostimulation to kind of block the pain.
Uh-huh.
So these are things like if you feel it coming on, you click the switch, or you just you apply the electrode right to the back of the scalp, and it just gives a little bit of a buzz right there. So there's a lot of ways to handle that. So don't just accept what your neurologist is saying. Look around.
All right. Yeah, I have a bottle of 15 Proscars here that I was able to get. I just, what you said about convincing me, Spencer, I guess that was the wrong choice of words. It was just kind of maybe put my mind at ease kind of thing, because I know my options are limited as far as surgery goes now. But
the bottom line is side effects do occur. There's no doubt about it. And you're concerned about those side effects. For me, it's been a great ride for the last almost 20 years using this drug. It basically got me to the point where, I wrote The Bald Truth. I decided to, do what I do for a living based on my success using finasteride. I would not be the same person if I didn't start taking this drug. I probably would be a different person. However, there are plenty of guys that do suffer from side effects. So I'm not here to push you to take a drug. I mean,
I saw a guy in the chat room tell me to man up and take Finn. It's not about manning up. I've been through hell the last 3 years because of the surgery, and I would hate to take something and then get more side effects or get side effects. Or,
well, ask Dr. Bauman. Alan, what do you see in your practice?
Regarding?
Side effects.
The side effects in my practice?
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, first of all, I have 8,000 patients that I've prescribed finasteride to. So I've prescribed Propecia for 15 years. I will tell you that about 2 to 3% of patients are going to have some side effects on the drug. The interesting thing is that I have never, ever seen a persistent side effect. I've never had a patient come back and say, well, you know what, I stopped the medication, but I still think I'm having side effects. I've never, ever seen it. So I don't know how many other surgeons are out there that have seen persistent side effects. I haven't seen it. I will tell you that I have ways, we treat patients with finasteride, and if they do think that they're having a side effect, we do a bunch of different things first to really determine whether that's the medication that's causing the issue or not. And there are, interestingly, a lot of different ways to change the dosing of the medication to lower the amount of finasteride that you're taking or to change the timing of the dose, which seems to resolve the side effects in about half of those patients that have them. So there's a lot of different options. I always tell patients, look, no one can promise you that there's not going to be any side effects.
That's right.
We know that there's a percentage of patients that are going to have sexual side effects on this drug. If you take this medication for a few weeks and you think you're having a sexual side effect, stop the medication. See what happens. In a week, it's out of your system. You're going to know.
But Chris, let me ask you this. Are you having sex right now?
No.
Okay. I mean, when's the last time you had sex with a woman?
It's been a while, a couple months probably.
Okay, because I know that you've contacted me. You're suffering emotionally. You're dealing with a lot of stuff. So
Right.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, I'm not saying that if you don't have a partner that you won't have sexual dysfunction, but I mean, it may be a good time to try the drug.
Yeah,
and,
that's true.
Especially if you're under the supervision of a physician. But again, I'm not going to push you into taking it. For me, I've had great success with it.
Right.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for your advice. I really appreciate it.
All right, Chris, man. Thanks for the call.
Thanks.
Take
Bye.
care. 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hey, man, it's George. Put me back on hold. I got disconnected, and I called back in.
Did you have a question? Did you want to finish? You said you wanted to ask one more question before we went to break.
Well, actually, I had mentioned to Dr. Bauman about that Nova episode, Stress Portrait of a Killer. It got into epigenetics. But I did have a question about how cortisol, stress hormone, can affect hair loss. Doctor, I've had a serious problem for years with stress hormone. My hormones were tested and measured by an MD surgeon who's now in regenerative medicine. And the cortisol levels were off the charts due to some physical injuries and emotional, psychological stress and things that had going on in my life. And I did notice I had been off the Propecia, the Proscar, for a while with that first scare they had with the prostate cancer thing, and found out that whole thing was a scientific train wreck. So I got back on the medication, stopped further loss. I have had, I've still got a solid hairline across the front, but I've had the diffuse thinning, which began in my mid-20s and the mid-scalp and then moved anteriorly and also crept towards the hairline. It's, the diffuse thinning is still continuing, even though I'm back on a serious dose of Propecia or Proscar. I'm thinking it may be stress-related. I'm also having some minute, for the last couple of years. Every time I get under stress in my life, I would get dandruff. Even from college, the dandruff would kick in like crazy. And now I've got for the last 2 or 3 years, I've had little micro scabs and dandruff on my scalp almost continuously, mostly in the areas of hair loss, but I suspect this was related to this cortisol problem, which apparently was off the chart. So can you make any comments about the effects of cortisol on scalp integrity and hair loss and how that all ties together?
Well, we know that stress is a big killer. I mean, think about it. Cancer, heart disease, stroke. I mean, stress has a lot of detrimental effects on the body. It can make you catch a common cold more easily. It can cause a stomach ulcer, a cavity in your teeth, make you break out when you're, from acne. I mean, we know that stress is a killer. So to think that it's not going to have an effect on your skin or the scalp or even the hair follicle is just ludicrous. Of course it does. And, it's not a myth that a significantly stressful period, and significant is relative, right? Because everybody could have something that's significant and the other person may not, but a significant stressful period, whether it's physiologic or psychologic, can definitely do damage to your hair. Now, the question becomes, well, can it do permanent damage? And that answer we don't really know, because if the stressful situation goes away in a quick fashion, maybe you can rejuvenate those hair follicles. But sometimes it seems that these very, very stressful situations tend to reveal or accelerate this underlying genetic pattern of hair loss. And this happens in men and in women.
I think that's what's happening.
So what's
to me.
the chemical mechanism? We can't say. I can't tell you exactly. Well, the cortisol is hitting this receptor and yada yada yada. But I will tell you that it tends to shut the follicles down, and usually 6 to 12 weeks later, you get the exogen, you get the shedding or telogen of the hair, and you can lose a lot of hair volume from it. It's the same thing that happens when you go through general surgery or a phase where your nutrition is really poor.
And George, that's why I always tell you, go out and have a couple of drinks. Meet somebody. Enjoy your life a little bit. You don't need to be stressed 24/7. I know you deal with your parents. You live close to your family, right?
Yeah, well, nobody wants to hear everybody's tales of woe, and that's not what we're here to use Dr. Bauman's time for. But in a 10-year period, 10 years ago, I was in a almost fatal car wreck with 2 ruptured discs in my neck, and then subsequent, spinal surgery, neck surgery, chronic pain. I had a relationship with a sociopath, and she almost ran me crazy. Then when Hurricane Katrina hit, and then I lost my job, and then had to go through surgery, and then lost family members, and just this hellish cascade of crap that happened for like the last 10 years. And I'm still trying to fight my way back out of the end of the tunnel of all this stuff. And I've seen how this stress thing has made this condition on my scalp get worse and worse. And even though I got back on the ProScar, it stopped the progression of the loss up towards the hairline.
Right.
The diffuse thing is continuing, and I've got these scabs on my scalp right now. When I scrape it, it's kind of like dandruff, but they're little.
Well, there's a lot of things that can cause dermatitis, George. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, you may even psoriasis can occur from a stressful situation. I mean,
well, that's what I was wondering. I was wondering if it might be psoriatic or it might be some kind of psoriasis thing that brought on by stress. Because Dr. Oz had a program on a few weeks ago about people that had stress psoriasis. In different places, and it also can come up on your scalp. So I guess I need to get to a dermatologist.
Stress throws your whole immune system for a loop. So, all of these things are related. And look, I deal with a lot of, especially in this economic climate, we deal with a lot of patients who are under a great deal of stress, whether it's physically, financially, or otherwise. They're dealing with a lot in their lives, so I understand that. And no one can eliminate the stress in your life, but all of us have to learn how to maybe manage it a little bit better. So, everybody does it in their own way. Some people hit the gym, some people write poetry, some people shoot machine guns, If it's the first 2, tell me about it. If it's the third, go have a great time.
Listen,
I go fishing and I like to shoot guns too. So.
George, listen, you know my story. I'm very open about this on the air, and I have dealt, in a family where I dealt with a lot of stress. I lost my brother. I've doing what I do in this industry causes a tremendous amount of stress. And, I've always found ways to deal with that stress. One is I exercise. I have a couple of glasses of wine here and there, maybe more when I'm doing the show. And I try to just be zen with whatever I have to deal with. And it's not easy. But I also think that diet plays a huge role in the way you react and your body reacts to stress. And I know that you're really into eating a clean diet. So when you're stressed out, do you kind of deviate from eating a good diet?
No, I don't. In fact, while Dr. Bauman was talking, I was cooking wild Alaskan salmon, organic eggs, and Mediterranean vegetables with olive oil, and doing my, organic salsa, doing my normal Mediterranean.
Well, maybe while you're doing that, you should open up a bottle of red wine and just fucking chill, just relax.
About the last thing I enjoyed with that is that around Christmas time they've got a new chocolate raspberry flavored wine my sister bought for Christmas last year, and I had one glass of that. But I need all the brain cells I can get to navigate.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. I mean, you're what? You're 50 years old now.
Yeah, I'm 50 now.
Okay, you got a lot of brain cells. You have not. You didn't drink your entire life. Maybe see a shrink, get a Xanax. I don't know, Doc. What do you think about that?
Listen, I'm not going to condone the consumption of alcohol for stress reduction if that's what you're trying to drag me into here.
A little glass of wine is healthy for you, right?
Well, yes, the resveratrol.
Hey, my lawyer told me the same thing. He said, "Go get drunk," but I know you don't drink, so
not drunk. You can have a glass or 2 of wine and just take off the edge.
Well, hey, one supplement, doctor. Have you ever heard Dr. Oz mention a supplement that's an anti-cortisol thing called Relora? I'm going to call Life Extension and ask them, have you ever heard of this Relora stuff, Relora?
I don't know, but if Dr. Oz is promoting it, I don't know. I mean, it's got to be good, right? He seems like a cool guy. I don't know.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. Look, I appreciate you confirming that.
I can't keep up with all that stuff he promotes. I don't know.
That's true.
But all that stuff sounds good. You got to do the research. You got to look at the published literature, to see if it's really hokey or not. And it takes time to go through all this stuff. But look, I'm lucky. I got a family practice doc who's here locally. His name is Ken Wollner, and he's a really super sharp guy, MD. But he also does some alternative style, holistic family medicine stuff. And he is the master sleuth of every kind of supplement that you can imagine. If you've heard of something this guy will go sleuth it out, and he'll figure out what the benefits are and how it might fit into your regimen. Because, remember, something that's good for one person might not necessarily be good for another. So you need to know somebody. You need to have a physician who has a whole picture of what your situation is, not just, getting advice from Dr. Oz on a 4 o'clock Friday afternoon,
Well, I read Life Extension, but I see a visit to your office somewhere in my future. You seem to have a great bag of tricks, and I see your resources and your repertoire, your bag of tricks seems to be expanding a lot, and Spencer speaks highly of you. So when I get ready to make a move and do something, I probably will end up driving down to see you in Boca. But I really appreciate your time and your expertise.
I think you said that same thing last time.
You bring a lot to this program,
George.
and we thank you for your help.
Yeah, he did.
No problem.
He did.
I think you said that last time, though, so the invitation's open. If you come down, I'll take care of you. It'll be my pleasure. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
All right, George. Listen, thanks for the call, man.
Hey, Spence, I got one other thing I thought of that I saw at the ISHRS conference that I thought was very, very cool take-home message.
Yeah, let's do that.
There was an interesting presentation by a guy named Dr. Ralph Paus, and what he does is he looks at hair follicles in basically out of the body in petri dishes and so forth. And what he noticed is that you can give minoxidil to these follicles while they're outside the body, and of course they grow thicker, stronger hair. But what he also noticed in these follicles that have been isolated is that there was a bunch of cellular activity, like a lot of skin cells being produced. And so he compiled this information and presented a whole lecture on what he believes the skin regeneration and skin regrowth properties are of the hair follicle. And so a part of the presentation had to do with literally transplanting follicles into chronic non-healing wounds as skin rejuvenators.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the other part of the lecture had to do with using minoxidil to stimulate the hair follicle cells, not just to grow hair, like, for example, after a transplant, but actually to heal the wounds faster, so that minoxidil may actually be a wound-healing agent, too.
So, okay, so if this guy was injecting, he was transplanting hair follicles into wounds.
Well, he gave kind of a general overview of this concept, and he had a lot of different scientific research to back up what he was saying.
Right.
And so it was kind of conceptual. He wasn't the transplant.
Yeah, he wasn't actually
doing
it. Right.
Okay. Right. So let's be clear about that. What he was presenting is more of the theoretical, like bench work, the laboratory concepts that might support these issues. Might support these methods. And so, we've always asked ourselves as hair transplant surgeons, well, should we be using minoxidil like right after the surgery, or do we got to wait till they're healed? And we always tell patients maybe you should back off of that minoxidil right before the surgery. But based on this guy's lecture, I'm not going to stop the minoxidil. I want people to use the minoxidil straight through, and I may even try it on a patient who's locally. Try to have them use the minoxidil right on the wounded area.
That's really interesting that you bring that up. There's a guy that posted in our forum that is very concerned that he started to use minoxidil like 2 or 3 days after the transplant. And his concern is that, did the use of minoxidil with the, propylene glycol and alcohol kill the hair follicles? Because he was under the impression, his doctor said you might want to start using minoxidil, but did not tell him to wait until everything was healed. And now he's freaking out that he may have damaged the follicles. So you're saying that, according to this guy, that might not be the case.
I don't think it's the case. First of all, I don't think the propylene glycol is going to affect the hair follicles. Sometimes you can cause some irritation from that alcohol, even just on bare scalp, even just on regular, unbroken scalp, you can cause irritation that can be severe with the generic Rogaines and such. But I think with some of the newer preparations and even the foam preparation, which is PG-free, propylene glycol-free, obviously, maybe patients could be using the minoxidil straight through. I don't think it would damage the grafts. I think based on what he was presenting, that actually you might even heal fast.
Well, you know what? I mean, based on what you're saying, this guy is freaking out. Maybe I'll send you that link, and if you have the time, maybe, give him a little insight of what you learned in the conference, and maybe you can kind of allay some of his fears.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Because this whole lecture that he was talking about, basically it kind of boils down to things that work for wound healing tend to work very well also for hair growth.
Right.
So, I mean, you could extrapolate that into a lot of different areas. For example, low-level laser therapy, even the PRP that we use, the A-cell. Think about it just for a second. All of those different types of treatments kind of started out as wound healing treatments, then also crossed over for hair growth.
Sure.
Well, what if you have a hair growth treatment and you cross that back over for wound healing, like the minoxidil?
Right.
So there's just, in the prostaglandins, I mean, that may be all wrapped into this whole thing.
Like I said, this guy's miserable. He's been writing, posting on the forum for a couple of weeks, and he has no idea. He spoke to his doctor, and his doctor is saying that, he never really advised for him to use the minoxidil directly after surgery, so he doesn't know what the outcome is going to be. Again, maybe you could lay his fears because he's really
I'd be happy
out.
to help him out. I mean, just, have him contact me, and I can see what's going on.
I'll send you the link. Maybe you can post in the forum because a lot of guys are interested in this. So we can do that. So I'm just looking at the chat room to see if any guys have any questions before we let you go.
they think Joe got banned.
Well, he may have gotten banned from the forum. I know. Every once in a while, these guys will ban him from the forum because I don't control the forum. But I know that he was not banned from the show. Let me see if this is Joe. Joe, is that you or is that George? Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Hello. All right.
I sent you that link to the songs. We'll have to do that next time. Check them out, and check your email and look at those songs that I sent you.
Oh no, absolutely. And let people know where they can find you, and if they are local, and obviously they can listen to your show online. So
sure,
feel free to plug that.
Sure. Well, the best way to contact me really is through my website, and that's baumanmedical.com. I'll put it into the chat room now, BAUMAN medical.com. And there's a lot of information there about what we do in our practice here. It's located in Boca Raton. We treat a lot of patients from all over the world. We do it through video conferencing, emails and photos, phone calls, and so forth. They can call the number, it's 561-394-0024 if they want to call by phone. Right now, no one's going to answer the phone except the answering service. So, you can certainly leave a message, or they can email me, drb@baumanmedical.com. And then if you're interested in that radio show, there's a lot of information about Kevin Ralston, who is my co-host and also a hair transplant patient. And you can find that info at livehair.tv. And I've put that link into the forum a couple of ways.
Alan, listen, it's always great having you on the show. Thank you for coming on. I gave you late notice. I actually texted you about 2 hours before the broadcast. If anyone can come on here and talk about what happened at the ISHRS, you're the guy I want to have on because, you really absorb this stuff like a sponge. You are so into it. And a lot of the guys, they go to the conference, but they're very, apathetic. They just want to see, how they're able to market their own practice, and they may not be that, interested in what's really going on in the field. You're not one of those guys. You are really interested.
I do try to soak it all up, and what's interesting is I brought my entire staff. We brought the entire surgical staff, and one of my technicians actually presented to the assistance program and was one of the faculty members on the dissection and placement and.
Wow.
Of the graft dissection lab. So I posted a bunch of photos on Facebook, and I'll get those out to the general public too. But he was like, Felipe was our superstar at the program. I think he got a little bit more airtime than I did at the conference. But it was great. We brought the whole staff with us, and everybody went to everything.
And any interesting gossip? We have about a minute and a half left. Anything happen?
Oh man, about the bald truth.
Well, yeah, about the IHRS, the bald truth. American Hair Loss Association, whatever.
Actually, not too much about the bald truth. I just think the take-home message was that things are moving towards a less invasive form of hair transplantation. FUE is really shaking it up. There were a lot of vendors with a lot of new devices. There have to been at least 6 new FUE devices that were at the expo this year.
Wow.
And at least several low-level laser therapy devices that you could choose from. So the technology in terms of gadgetry is really improving a lot. And, it's all for the benefit of the patient. So,
look, I agree. It's very exciting times. Dr. Alan Bauman, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, he gave you his websites. You can check him out at ihrs.org as well and americanhairloss.org. Alan, again, thanks a lot.
Spencer, no problem. Thanks for having me. I had a great time as usual.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, you too.
All right.
Bye,
guys,
everybody.
we are going to say goodnight to everybody. I want to thank you for hanging out. I'm a little hoarse tonight. I apologize for that. I think I have a little cold, but it was a hair loss is not real, fake. Jesus, people are so screwed up, man. I got to tell you, we do our best to provide you guys with really good objective information when it comes to hair loss through the Bald Truth, through the American Hair Loss Association, through baldtruthtalk.com. I wish you guys the best of luck in your research, but please do your due diligence. We want you to be safe, and if you can, forget about hair loss. Just deal with life as it comes, and figure out a way to feel comfortable in your own skin. Until next time, be strong. God bless, and thank you so much for hanging out. Take care.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you.